Does anyone still believe in paradise?
A licensed minister, Shanta Atkins has been evangelizing the gospel for years. She is a singer, she is a songwriter, she's an advocate for mental and emotional health. And here to talk about her music, life, and more, please welcome Shanta Atkins to the Jenleeion Circle. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm blessed and excited to be sitting here talking to you.
Absolutely, likewise.
I guess first of all, I'll say obviously we've been in a delicate situation with the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
How have you been coping and getting through this season?
You know, I've been coping pretty well, I'd say. I think because I have a little bit of a different perspective in how I think this all came to be. And so with that and just with being around my family, I'm coping pretty well. Yeah.
What are some of your coping mechanisms and include?
Being around my family. So I moved from LA to Chicago 3 years ago. And so at the start of this, what I call a pandemic, I actually flew home and I just ended up staying there for a few months. So I was just with my family the whole time, which was amazing for me because I live, by myself in Chicago. So it was just really good to be around my family. For me, I'd say that's the best way that I cope just with anything, being around family, around people who love you and care about you, and it's fun. I have 25 nieces and nephews, so it's always something to do.
Yeah, now your voice is very rich, rich for what I say with gospel flavor. And, when I'm obviously thinking about records like I Will Follow, to God Sees You, to even 2020's Made Up My Mind, you have a lot of power in your voice, and obviously it's driven by something. So let me start first, the music aspect of it, your road to music.
Oh, so it's been a journey, as you may or may not know. I have sisters who are famous gospel singers, Mary, and with them being who they are, I feel like there was always this pressure just for me to sing and to do all these things, and I was very standoffish. I was very like, nah, that's not for me, that's for them, I'm gonna do something else.
Yeah.
But what happened was, just after, just growing up and growing in God and really wanting to do whatever God wanted me to do, I really felt like this was his doing. This was what he wanted me to do. He's like, no, you're going to step out. You're going to be out front. You're going to be singing. You're going to be writing. And these are things that I didn't necessarily see myself doing. So he was sending from people to just encourage me and push me. And so I finally made the decision to move forward as a solo artist, releasing my first single, I Will Follow, in 2016. And so I had to work through my own just kind of issues and insecurities and different things like that. And so I speak a lot about that in my music.
I think that's excellent. So out of curiosity, what was the other thing you thought you would have been doing? You first efforted to do before you shifted to the music piece?
So I wanted to do a lot of things. Okay, so it wasn't just like one. I always wanted to go to law school.
I'm smiling because that's always one of the things I wanted to do.
Yeah. So.
Gotcha.
Then I realized what it took to go. I said, I don't want to go to law school. So.
Yeah.
Then I started working in nonprofit, and I started my first job. Actually, no. Let me go back. My first job out of college. I graduated in 2008 from San Diego State University. And my first job, I was working for a grassroots campaign with the Democratic National Committee. And so I really wanted to work in government, but there were some things that I just kind of didn't agree with. So I took a different path. I sang background for a little while, and then I started working in nonprofits. So I started working with children and families who had substance abuse issues, who were mentally ill and disabled and all of that. And so that kind of took me to where I am now. So now I'm an educator and a singer, and it kind of works well with my schedule. So, I'm teaching during the week and flying out and doing interviews or, concerts and stuff like that on the weekends. So it's cool.
Okay, so you had a plan to do other things, and obviously there's people were telling me I should do this, or maybe I should look into it. When did you know that you were just like your sisters? You have a powerhouse voice as well. When did you know that and accept that piece of it?
I always knew that I could sing. So let me say this. I always knew that I could sing, but I was such a perfectionist. So I didn't allow myself to be put in situations where I felt like I could possibly mess up. It's always kind of like, you know, you're kind of playing it safe. Like, what if I start singing? What if it doesn't work out? What if all these things happen? You know what I mean? All of that
Suppose
stuff.
I go out here and don't nothing come out.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then there's this major pressure, you know, because of who they are. It's like everybody is like, oh, you're gonna be Little Mary, oh, you're gonna be like Tina, oh, you're gonna
and
be,
I know that drove you. Yeah.
So working through that, I really had to make sure that I was secure in who I was, regardless of whether I would sing or something else. I had to be secure in who I was. So as far as the voice, I always knew that I could sing, but it's like, okay, can I write? Because when you're an artist, for me, I was just like, I don't want to be saying I'm an artist and then I just sing and I don't write. So I wanted to explore that, and so I did, and I was like, oh, I can actually do this. Wow. So, you know, so when I started writing, that made me feel a little bit more comfortable, because like I said, I already knew that I could sing, but that made me feel more comfortable when I realized that I actually could write things that were really, really, really good, and not just like, oh, Jesus came, then he died. You know what I mean? Like the basic stuff.
Yeah, the basic
you know?
stuff,
So,
the formulaic stuff. Yeah, exactly.
So.
And it's important that you say that, especially the writing piece of it, because even the flavor between the three singles I mentioned, the flavor, it's so you, but they're all so different. So to that end, being able to write songs, but also write an eclectic mix of them, you know, how do you find yourself in that? Or at least being like, I want a different style, I want this. I think it's great. Like I said, they're so different stylistically, but they're still you.
Absolutely, and I think that it just speaks to just who I am. I think that sometimes people, they always want to find someone to kind of match you up with. You know what I mean? I don't think that people are intentionally trying to put you in a box. Right. You know, I think that sometimes they're just like, well, let me find someone who I'm kind of familiar with that she reminds me of, versus let me see what this person has to offer. Let me see everything that this person has to offer. And so I feel like my music really speaks to just the type of person I am, personality that I have, and I always am getting new and fresh ideas, just because when you spend time with the creator, you know, you're gonna have creative power. And I think that for me, a lot of what I sing about and a lot of what I write about really comes from that place of my relationship and my experiences with God.
And with that, and you know, made up my mind, you spend a lot of time crooning about the voice, hearing the voice, hearing God's voice, your voice, your voice, your voice. That stuck out to me. So where are you with hearing God's voice, or what your next steps are going to be?
Well, even with that particular song, towards the end, I talk about like, now hear your voice, and like it's all my life I've been waiting for this moment to come, right? And so, and then I go, now it's finally here. I think that that's where I am in my life. I'm here, I'm in the moment, I'm moving forward, I'm doing what God has told me to do, I'm experiencing it, I'm enjoying it. I've worked through all of my own personal issues and still working through some things so that I can actually enjoy the places and spaces that God has called me to.
Wow, that is huge. That's huge. Your advocacy for mental health, and emotional health. It's a topic that's personal to us here, at least more so personal to me. I've adopted a number of kids who have emotional disturbances, issues, and mental health concerns. When we look at today's world, there's a concurrent epidemic going on right now with mental health in this crisis because of the pandemic, right? Where has your advocacy taken you during this period, knowing that it's risen statistically, the concern with mental health and emotional health?
Well, I will say one of the things that I was doing before the pandemic, I partnered with other mental health organizations like Mental Health for America, and just making sure that my voice is present in those places, because when our voice is present in those places and spaces, it draws, I believe, attention to that, because that's something that I kind of dealt with, and then people who watch me, they're just like, oh, okay, wow, it is okay to talk about mental health. Okay, it is okay to talk about emotional health. Okay, it is okay to seek out help and all of that. And so I think that's something that's a part of who I am, as far as connecting with different organizations or different people, or you know what I mean, to really talk about it. I think that during this time, I just continue to lend my voice to what I believe in. So, you know, whether it's sharing a song, whether it's sending a message on social media, whether it's sitting with someone on the phone for hours, talking them through and walking them through, or advocating in the classroom. So I teach as well. I teach 7th grade currently, and I work with diverse learners and all of that. And so I advocate for them. I advocate for them with school counselors. I advocate with them amongst administration. I advocate for them amongst other educators. And I think those things are important. The reason why is because you don't see a lot of people who have that voice who will actually speak up in those settings, right? If you are, you know, in a space where, you know, this is where mental health is celebrated and it's like, take care of your mental health. Yeah, go to counseling, go to therapy. But if you're in spaces where they're not doing that, where there's still, you know, this huge stigma, you need voices in those spaces as well. And so I would say during the pandemic, I have definitely amplified my voice in those spaces to make sure that educators, administrators, counselors, everyone who's working in the school system, that they are aware. Not only do we as educators need to make sure that we are emotionally and mentally where we need to be, but we need to pay attention to these students. We need to pay attention to these children. We need to pay attention to what's happening and what's going on, you know, and not to get too deep. But I work with children who deal with, you know, depression, like it's very real. So having conversations with them, maybe spending an hour on the phone with them, just talking them through to just make sure that they're okay, because they need to know that you care, and they need to know that you're actually paying attention to them. Because if they don't, you know, they'll probably, you know, commit suicide, which that's horrible. And I've encountered so many families that have dealt with that and just kind of walked them through the process of just healing and all of that. And it's very difficult. So if there's anything that I could do to prevent that, I'm going to do it.
I think that is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And so, you know, in your humble opinion, what are some of the ways that we can dispel the would-be false taboo that mental health has, the stigma itself? What are some things we can do to start to dispel that?
Have more conversations. Having more conversations. I think that people underestimate the power of their own voice in their own community, in their own family, in their own spaces. Talk about it in church, talk about it at school, talk about it at your job, talk about these things, because what happens is you make people feel more comfortable to share. When I shared my you know, story about, you know, being depressed and having suicidal thoughts and even attempts, I think that it made other people feel more comfortable to say, hey, you know what, I'm dealing with this too. I've been experiencing this too. Because people need to talk. You need to talk about what's going on. You can't just hold it all in. You can't just suppress everything and act like, oh no, it's fine. Oh no, I'm okay. It's just like people, you know, if you have an addiction or substance abuse issue, go get help. And I think that people underestimate the power of just a simple conversation. So have more conversations, right, in all of the spaces that you're in. Then seek help. I mean, even if you cannot, because some people say, well, you know what, Shanta, I can't afford a therapist. Okay, there were times that I couldn't afford a therapist, but I had a lot of friends who were counselors, who were therapists. I would have conversations with them. I would look on the internet. I would find different videos where they had psychologists or psychiatrists speaking and sharing information, and I would just learn from them. You know what I mean? The education piece is super important as well.
So what, if you could briefly describe, what was your point of rescue from, in your own story? You talked about depression, you talked about, you know, fleeting moments of being suicidal. What was the moment of rescue, or the moment of, I'm awake now and I know I got to do my work?
So I think that my moments happened in the midst of me doing work. You know what I mean? So I was always an advocate or proponent for, you know what I mean, speaking about mental and emotional health. The reason why is because again, I feel like I have all these jobs that are like literally assignments, because I work with the population of people that God really wants me to really talk about and speak about in the spaces that I'm in when people wouldn't normally talk about it. Because I mean, let's say 5-6 years ago, like people weren't even as open to talk about mental health the way that they are now. So as far as my own personal journey, I'd say that God sent people to me along the way to help me. I had a lot of instances where I would be really low, or I'd be really high. really, really low, really, really high. And I feel like God continued to send people to me to help me because I have been there for other people. And so I just feel like it's been more of a journey. I can't say that it's been one moment. It's been multiple moments. It's been many moments with many people. Sometimes it would be a song that carried me through. Sometimes it would be someone who responded to a text. Sometimes it would be somebody who answered the phone. So it wasn't just like this one isolated incident. You know what I mean? I know now, being on the other side of it, after having dealt with that so much, I had to deal with a lot of trauma that I was experiencing that I didn't know was trauma, because a lot of African Americans deal with trauma, but we don't say that's trauma. You know what I mean? And we don't realize it's actually impacting me in a lot more ways than I, could ever imagine. I will say this: the thing that kind of pushed me deeper into just depression and being suicidal, the death of my father. I have a really good friend who's a therapist, and he says, most people's introduction to the world of mental health is the death of a parent or of a loved one. And for me, it was my father. I literally wanted to just die and go to heaven. I don't really want to deal with the pain of not having my father here. And so for me, the loss of my father, coupled up with just things in life, it was very difficult. And even though I had my faith, like I said, there were times I'm really high, like, Jesus, hallelujah, I want to live, but then those low moments. So I had to find a balance. And I feel like I'm at a place in my life now where I found that balance. I know exactly what to do in the moment when I'm feeling suicidal, when I'm feeling depressed. Okay, have a conversation. Okay, call this person, so that I don't allow myself to go off into the deep end. You know?
Yeah, and one of the things you just illustrated with calling it a journey, because I believe it's a journey as well. I believe that, with my own spiritualism considered, I do believe that we can get to healing points, but I believe that mental health is definitely a journey, and that there's no quote unquote finish line, because you have to take care of your mental health on a daily basis, like we do our physical, spiritual, and emotional health.
Absolutely.
So I say all of that to ask this: on that journey means that, similar to what you just illustrated, those days of feeling sorry for yourself, or those days of being depressed for a second, they're going to surely come, and the art is not staying there, right? So. Absolutely. Translation, coping skills, right? You said that you reach out, you call people. What other things do you do in those fleeting moments of depression that do still come, and that surely will?
I will say this, if I'm really honest, I pray. Music for me is really huge.
Yes.
And so it's music. Music for me is really huge. And I'll say this, 2018, the year that I moved from LA to Chicago, I think it was October, and I remember that I had just had an incident at work, and I had never experienced anything like that before, just kind of the attacks that come and stuff. And I remember just feeling like I don't want to live, because I just kind of couldn't take the pressure of what I was dealing with. And I remember feeling like that, and in that moment I took a bottle of pills, and I was just like, well, whatever, God, if you want me to live, then I'm gonna take this. You better just keep me alive, but because I don't really want to be here. So I literally took it, and I was just like, oh well,
the entire bottle.
It was a bottle of Motrin. And so it may have been half full, though. I know it wasn't completely full. It may have been half full.
It was still an ungodly amount of pills. I got
definitely an ungodly amount. And so I was just like, oh well, you know what I mean. And then of course you're still laying there. You're not dead. You're not sick. And so I had a friend who I was able to just kind of really be open and honest with. So I would say at that moment, it was just, I had to really, 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 I don't even want to say pull myself together, but knowing that there were people who cared about me, people who loved me, that coupled with just listening to different songs that really kind of just helped me to just really, really, really get through, that really, really, really helped. Other things, smaller things, I guess people would call it more practical things. Maybe if you don't have a person who's there that you can talk to, or you're feeling alone, or you just don't have that in you to reach out. Exercising, getting up, moving around, literally. And people may think that this is a bit much, but sometimes I would just get up and literally just start clapping my hands, or saying, God help me, over and over and over again, because you have to do something to pull yourself out of it. And I just, according to what I believe that a big part of what depression is the spirit of heaviness. the Bible says He's given us a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. So I will put on some praise music, and I will be like, even if I just say Jesus, 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 I may start saying it in my mind, right? And then I'm just like, okay, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Then I'm getting louder, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Then I'm walking around saying Jesus. You understand what I'm saying? You have to do whatever it takes in that moment to pull you out of that. So for me, my phone's right there, turn the music on. Okay, that's giving me a little strength. Okay, now I'm saying Jesus in my mind. Okay, now I'm giving me a little more strength. You know, and just kind of build from there. But it may be different in every moment. You know what I mean? So I
think the magic of it all is knowing in your mind to say, gee, this is happening, I'm starting to go there, I really don't want to, but I'm cognizant enough to say, hey, let's do a self-redirect and grab onto a coping skill of some mechanism.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's something that I've learned recently, that even when I'm on the phone with people and they're telling me a story and their energies are so off that it's going to induce, you know, PTSD for me or something, it's like I've even gotten down to the point where I can say, you know, unfortunately I have to go. You know, to be emotionally protective of myself. That's one of the things I learned in that. So for me, I believe music has healing powers, and so when I'm going through certain things, the song I Must Tell Jesus is my go-to. I'll turn that on and cry it out, and then I'll feel better. What are
crying.
What are some of your go-to songs?
God Sees You. Crying. Okay. There's this song by Stephanie Gretzinger. It's You're my oxygen. You're making me wanna live again. You're my oxygen. Right? Yeah. I remember the first time that I heard that song, I was just like, like literally you give me life. Like when you think about what oxygen is, like we literally can't survive without it. And I'm just like, God, you literally are that for me. And when I listen to that song, it gives me so much peace. Sometimes I even do it subconsciously because thank God for the Holy Spirit. He knows when we're going into situations, or he knows when we are going to feel a certain way. And it's almost like sometimes I will sing that song not realizing I'm singing it in preparation to carry me through whatever that negative emotion or feeling that I may, you know what I mean, may deal with. Setting boundaries. You have to set boundaries. There are some people, like you said, hey, I can't have this conversation right now. I love you. I know that you're going through. I can actually give you some numbers to somebody that you can call. I can't have that conversation with you. I remember the day that my father passed, I had to preach my father's funeral. When I first got out the car, someone walks up to me and grabs me and starts crying and said, how are we going to get through this? First of all, this is my daddy, okay? What do you mean how are we going to get through this? And why are you crying on me looking for comfort? And sometimes a lot of people are looking for comfort. And I was that, I guess I'll say, strength for a lot of people, because it's, oh, you're so strong, you just pray and you just do this. But it's just, and then so people sometimes they think you don't hurt. They think things don't bother you just because you're not all over the place, or because you're not, you know, because they feel like, well, you're not strung out and you went through that. Like, yeah, but I hurt too. Just because I don't respond or react the way that someone else does doesn't mean that I'm not hurting or not going through. So I think setting those strong boundaries, being the strong friend, you know, you have to really, really set those strong boundaries. Like, hey, I can't listen today. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe even in a few hours. But today, I have to take this time for myself. You know, so.
Yeah, and I learned, you know, translation, that's that taking care of your emotional health and your relationships, and who you let in and who you let out. It all goes into that boundary piece of it. And so for your music, first of all, you need to do more songs that are a cappella, like God Sees You. That was, just saying, that was really good.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
What other music projects do you have coming up here?
So I have an EP coming this summer. These are songs that I've had for like 5-6 years, and so I'm kind of revamping some of them and just working on that, and some new songs as well. So that'll be coming this summer, so I'm really excited about it. I'm also working on a project where it's going to be like visuals released like online, and so I'll be releasing like short songs like every week.
So tell this blind man what you're actually wearing today. What's your outfit?
I am wearing GGA, Gugu Atkins, by my sister at the Gugu. So yeah, this is one of her new pieces. I love it. I saw it and I was just like, oh my God, I have to get that. So I got that. Well, and I wore that.
And surely God sees you in it. And tell everyone where they can follow you.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram at It's Shanta Atkins. That's ITSSHANTAATKINS. You can hit me on Twitter at It's Shanta Atkins. You can find me on Facebook at Shanta Atkins. And let's see, my website, shantaatkins.com. Got a podcast, the Shanta Atkins Podcast. Just Google me. All the stuff will come up. But yeah, no.
All the stuff will definitely come up.
Yes.
And be sure to check out her current single that's been out since 2020, Made Up My Mind. And if you or someone you know is suffering with mental health, please reach out to the Suicide Prevention Hotline at 800-237-8255, where someone will be standing by to talk to you. I want to thank you so much for joining us in the Jenleeion Circle today. This has been enlightening for me and very inspiring to me. So I look forward to listening to more of your music and staying in touch.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shanta.
Thank you.
Does anyone still believe in paradise?